There are stories from the Second World War that defy explanation. Tales of ghost
Meine Arbeit
ships
für Richtiges, ob du
and phantom
glaubst.
soldiers. But one story stands apart. A tale so impossible it sounds like folklore.
全国军民同胞们，全
The
世
story
界
of a plane that flew without a cockpit. A mangled beast of steel and blood, kept in the air by sheer will alone. Tonight, we pull back the curtain on one of history's most haunting and unbelievable events. This isn't just a war story. This is the story of the ghost of Miss Spa and the men who refused to die at 25,000 feet. July 14th, 1944. The war in Europe is a raging inferno. For 24-year-old First Lieutenant Ewald Swanson, it's just another day in the office. His office is the cockpit of a B-17 Flying Fortress, a four-engine behemoth nicknamed Miss Spa. Swanson and his crew of 9 other young Americans are part of a massive 60-bomber formation with a single, high-stakes objective: cripple the Nazi war machine by destroying a critical railroad hub deep in Budapest, Hungary. As they crossed into enemy airspace, the sky turned black, not with clouds, but with flak. Hundreds of German 88mm anti-aircraft guns opened up, creating a deadly, unavoidable storm of exploding iron. The air filled with the deafening roar of explosions, and Miss Spa shuddered as shrapnel ripped through its metal skin. But they pressed on. They were the tip of the spear, and failure was not an option. Just seconds from the target, their bombardier, Kenneth Dudley, found his mark. With a steady hand, he released their payload. For a fleeting moment, there was relief. Mission accomplished. Then, in a single, horrific instant, everything changed.
Yours, copy. My ship. Bombs away.
A German 88mm shell, traveling at nearly 3 times the speed of sound, struck the nose of the aircraft. The entire front of the plane, the bombardier station, the navigator's post, and the cockpit simply ceased to exist. It was vaporized in a flash of white fire, taking Dudley and the navigator with it. A brutal, -30-degree wind screamed through the new gaping hole. Blood was everywhere. The control column Swanson had been holding a moment before was gone. The instruments were gone. His entire world was gone. Physics took over. With the nose gone, the bomber's center of gravity shifted violently. Miss Spa lurched upwards into a near-vertical climb, seconds from stalling and entering an unrecoverable death spiral. 8 men were about to plummet 25,000 feet to their deaths. But then, something impossible happened. Somehow, Ewald Swanson regained control. But how do you fly a plane that has no cockpit? You don't. The crew does. In one of the most incredible acts of airmanship in history, Swanson began shouting commands over the deafening roar of the wind. His crew, standing in the freezing, blood-soaked fuselage, grabbed the raw, exposed control cables and began pulling them by hand. Imagine it. It was like performing brain surgery during an earthquake. One wrong pull, one misheard command, and they were all dead. Hauntingly, the crew of a nearby B-17 looked on in horror and disbelief. A ghost ship, its front end a mangled wreck, pulled up alongside them in perfect formation, flying as if nothing had happened. It was a sight so haunting it would be seared into their memories forever. But the nightmare wasn't over. Another flak shell found them, obliterating their number 2 engine. Now they had no nose, a dead engine, and were being flown by men pulling on wires. The drag was immense. Miss Spa began to lag behind the formation, becoming a lone wounded animal in a sky full of predators. For 10 agonizing minutes, they fought to keep the dying beast airborne, flying it deeper into enemy territory. Finally, Swanson made the call. He screamed the 2 words every airman dreads: "Bail out!" One by one, 7 crew members leapt into the void. But Swanson stayed, holding the crippled plane steady with the help of his remaining crew members on the cables. He was the captain, and he would be the last one off his ship. As the final man jumped, the plane gave up the fight. It stalled, trapping Swanson inside. For a moment, he hung motionless in the sky. He saw his chance and jumped. But his parachute snagged on the jagged metal of the wreckage, tearing the fabric. In a brutal twist of fate, the tear saved him. It ripped him free from the doomed plane just as it began its final plunge. He was flung violently through the air, narrowly missing the tail, and blacked out. When he woke up, the ground was rushing at him. He had seconds to live. His damaged parachute wasn't slowing him down enough. But through sheer luck, he spotted a cluster of trees near what looked like a camp. He steered his body towards them. He crashed through the canopy, the branches breaking his fall, but also breaking his leg. He had survived. A sense of strange irony. German medics from a POW camp found him and saved his life. And in the war's most surreal coincidence, he soon discovered that every single one of his crew members had also survived, been captured, and brought to the very same camp. A happy accident, as they would later call it. They had flown into hell together, and together they would endure captivity. Ewald Swanson and his crew were liberated 9 months later. Swanson would go on to live a long, peaceful life, forever remembered as the only pilot in history to fly a bomber without a cockpit. What they accomplished that day in the skies over Hungary shouldn't have been possible. It defies the laws of physics and the limits of human endurance. It's a story that lives in the space between fact and folklore, a testament to the unbreakable will of a few young men who looked death in the face and refused to blink.
What do you believe carried them through? Skill? Luck? Or something else entirely? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. For more unbelievable stories from the strange hours of history, make sure you subscribe. We'll be waiting.